Okay, we are apparently live. Not that I think anybody's here anyway.
Not yet.
But I have to.
We can at least have fun discussing the book and figure out what our next book is. So if people do watch this live, you need to go to like Goodreads or Twitter and vote on the book, because at the end of this, we'll pick out what our next book is.
Ooh, wait.
Ooh.
There's another book.
Well, no, we only are doing the one this
Okay,
time.
sorry.
We just we're trying to do it's like an every other month like thing that we've been doing. So we're just picking what our next one will be.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's a second one for Jurassic Park.
There is. I have a lot of feelings about Jurassic Park. We'll just say that.
Yeah, me too. But especially because of the mix between the movie and the book, and me having watched the movie like 50 times. There's a lot. There's a lot of differences.
Okay, so this is probably a dumb question, but you did this last time, Megan. So how the hell do you like view if there is a comments or chat or whatever?
Well, I'm on the thing trying to see.
Yeah, there's like a group chat, but I don't know if that's just for the people that are like in the call.
Live chat.
Oh no, that's for everyone. I think that's for.
Yeah.
Oh wait, but
no, it's like on mine. It's on this side.
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
Whatever, we'll figure it out. I don't know. It's fine. Everything's fine. I'm so 30, you guys. Like, how do computers work?
Someone when our sound come on. I think Faye Katz said she jumped with the sound come on, and I'm like,
oh yeah.
Okay, so I'm
terrible with names, by the way. So if I mispronounce something, I just cannot pronounce words.
Yeah. Okay, so did it just like show up on your? Because I don't have it on mine, which is really frustrating.
It's not like where the normal like comments are. It's like off to the side.
Yeah, no, I know, but all I have is like it's like group chat, and then it's just like us.
Switch it from the top to where it says group to live, maybe.
Okay, hold on. It doesn't give me that option.
Oh,
wait.
Are you on the Google Hangout still?
No, I'm in because I did it through YouTube. So, hold on. Let me see what the hell I'm doing.
And it's Firecats. So that's totally easy to pronounce. I'm just dumb. So, do we want to like kind of start going over how we felt about the book and our like overall rating of it?
Sure. I'm just spreading the word around a little bit.
Sounds good.
I'm very confused. Whatever, it's fine.
Well, overall, I will say I kind of really loved the book. But this is also the second Michael Crichton I've read. I've read Dragon Teeth as well. And I just kind of really dig his writing style. It is very different from the movie, like super different from the movie. And so growing up with the movie, I kind of was put off by that. But I kind of just decided to separate it, which I know you kind of should, but it's hard to sometimes. So as a book, I really loved it. But as a, like, growing up from the movie, it was kind of like, this is so crazy different. So
yeah, and there are some parts that are really, really gross in the book, really graphic.
Yeah, very much so. It is so different from the movie in that aspect. Which I mean, in the movie, you get some pretty graphic like kills and stuff too, but it's definitely different in the book. There seems to be a lot more death, which I thought was surprising because I wasn't expecting that at all.
Yeah, especially when main characters in the movie start dying in the book, because you're like, wait.
Yeah, it's so I have like a weirder relationship with Jurassic Park than most people do because like I didn't like the movie when I was a kid. So like I saw it right when it came out, but I was I think 6. So or something like that. And like it was one of those things that like we went to see it because like my big brother wanted to see it, and you know, whatever else. And I don't know, it was just like I had a like I watched it like once when it came out, and then I didn't see it again. So I didn't watch the movie again until like maybe 2.5 years ago when I read the book for the first time, which I did as part of a buddy read. And as I was, so I didn't really remember the movie. So I wasn't making all those comparisons. So like there are certain things that then I watched the movie again after that. Like I think there are certain things that the book did better, but I also think that the story lends itself better to a movie. 'Cause like reading it, it doesn't really have the same like impact that it does.
Thrill kind of effect. Yeah,
right. Like you don't have like the music, the score, all of that stuff. But like
exactly.
So
me and Josh, buddy, read this together, and unfortunately Josh from Beards and Books couldn't join us today for the live show. But we were talking about obviously the comparisons to the movie and stuff like that. And I kind of brought up the fact that Michael Crichton also did a lot of movie screenwriting. And I think that's why this book lends itself so well to a movie adaptation, because he wrote it with that kind of in mind, because he does have that background, which I think is pretty good. I like how Firecat says that she listens to the soundtrack while like reading it, because I think that would be amazing. I don't know why I didn't do that.
Yeah, it changes completely. It changes everything. What happened to Sam?
I don't know.
She went off.
Did we lose Sam?
Well, I don't know.
You talk about your thoughts, and I'll see what's going on and see if I can get her back on.
Yeah. I mean, my thoughts from the beginning, it was suddenly the first scene is completely different, and apparently, I don't know who told me that, but apparently, the book, the movie was finished before the book was out,
doing nonsense
or something. So that was a really curious fact.
Yeah.
And so it makes sense that the story in the book is completely different than it is in the movie. And of course, some things had to have more action that in the story they just don't. You know, they're kind of boring. I remember one specific part. I don't know if you remember in the movie when they are looking at the different labs, going around this kind of ride, where at some point they force themselves out and they go and see their nursery. And in the book, they're just kind of like walking through every single lab, and it's being explained to them by one of the guys. So I get how it being different in some scenes makes it more interesting for a movie, because it would be kind of boring in a movie to, you know, just watch them go through the different labs, walking around. But it's completely different. Like the kids' ages are swapped.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting as well.
See, I appreciate the movie for that a lot more, though, because like Lex in the book, I want to choke her.
I know. I was about to say that.
She's like so annoying.
I think when they did the movie, they made it so that like both of the kids at least had a function within the story. And I think in the book, Lex's entire function in the story was just to
screw everything up,
be annoying and screw everything up and be like a nuisance. And then like her brother figures out the computers and knows about the dinosaurs, and like it's a totally different thing.
Lexi's completely useless in the book.
She's the whole time I'm just like, why are you just like the whole time she's like, I'm hungry, and I'm like, can you not? Like you're being chased by a T-Rex. Calm the fuck down, child.
Yeah.
And then I was like, maybe this is how I know I'm not a kid person, because I was like, stop it. Just like the whole time I couldn't do it.
I don't know. I think she was just annoying in the end. she wouldn't stop even after having almost died like twice. With the T-Rex sleeping in the back, she's still just shouting at Tim to do something. I don't remember that part very well.
Yeah, no, that was
She's
like
like,
the Velociraptor.
I'll do whatever I want.
He's
and-
just like,
and-
Tim,
shut
fix
up.
it. And he's just like, I'm trying. And he's only, like, what is he, like 8 or 12 or something like that? Like, he doesn't
Yeah.
really know
Yeah.
what he's doing either. Like, he's also a child. I do think it's hysterical that, like, it is this, like, young kid who kind of saves the day because the adults, like, can't just poke around on a touchscreen. Like, none
Yeah,
of them could
that's-
figure out how to.
Actually, the usual like technology.
Mhm.
It's true.
Adults go lost, and the kids just do everything happily, and they're fine.
It did take me like halfway through the book to realize that the kids were swapped ages, though. Just because in my head, it was just ingrained from the movie who they
Yeah.
were. And so I was like,
Yeah.
wait a second.
Let's
This
see.
isn't right.
There's like a lot of character differences too, because like there's whole characters that like aren't even in the movie that are in the book, but they like combined the personalities or whatever for the sake of like, what is it? The publicist guy, Ed Regis, and is it the lawyer? Yeah, because like I've seen the movie all of twice in my 30 years of life. So but like I like those two characters, I think they just like mashed them together for the sake of the movie because they were like, we don't need both of these guys, like because neither of them really does
publicist
all that much, or especially like the publicist.
One thing that was really weird for me in the movie, I mean compared to the book, was that in the movie the lawyer is this skinny annoying guy worth nothing. Basically he's just there. He doesn't know anything. And in the book, he knows a lot more than in the movie, for sure. And he is this muscular guy who actually tries to do things, even though he's afraid as hell of everything. And he is kind of a coward. He still goes and does it. So it's completely different. And yeah, you have in the movie again, it's the lawyer who runs from the car when the T-Rex is attacking, and in the book it's not. It's just this tour guide that just runs away and ends up dying, so he's kind of useless as well.
I kind of appreciate what happened to like Hammond in the book. Just like he just, when you try to screw with nature, dude, don't be surprised when you get eaten by tiny dinosaurs.
But it's completely different too. That was so weird for me. Like there were two main characters in that were different from the movie to the book that really got me confused. One of them was Grant, because in the movie we know that Grant doesn't like kids.
No, his character is like,
yeah, in the book it's like, kids, come here, let's talk and do things, and you're like, that's not Grant. That's not Alan Grant. He doesn't like kids. He wants to run from Tim, not stay in the same car.
But then he like kind of has to make peace with kids. Well, also like in the movie, aren't Grant and Ellie like a thing? Aren't they like together? I feel like in the movie they kind of are, and like
because then when you go to the third movie, there isn't a relationship. She is actually with someone else that is a doctor or something.
I just feel like in the first one, and I don't think that the relationship like lasts necessarily, but I do feel like in the first, and like I said, I have only seen it twice, and the last time was like 2 years ago. Okay, yeah, Firecats is agreeing with me. I'm not crazy. So Megan, I'll have audio for you again.
Oh yeah. Oh, there she is. Hi.
We're gonna figure this out one day. Like we're gonna get better at doing this whole thing.
I had a cough a second ago, so I muted it, and I thought I unmuted it, and I didn't.
It's fine. Everything's fine.
I think they definitely played up the chemistry between them two. Obviously, for movies, people like to see a little bit of that kind of chemistry between actors. So I think they definitely played it up for the movie.
And I think it made sense in the movie too, because the way that they did the character of Grant, like he didn't like kids, and like she was basically the whole time she was just like, you could work on that, you could give it a shot. Yeah. And I think like if there were no anything between them, that wouldn't have played off as well as it did in the movie, because like why would he care what she thinks about his opinion about kids if they're like, if he, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think in the book, there's like more of a defined age difference between the two of them. And like when Tim asks if they're together, he's just like, no.
No, she's like, my daughter, dude.
It's like, oh no, she's getting married to this other guy. Like that's a no. That's a no from me.
I personally really enjoy Michael Crichton, how he influences science within his writing. So in the book, I really enjoyed like the conversations of chaos theory, and in particular Ian Malcolm's character. I just thought it added so much to the book that sometimes was a little lost in the movie for me personally.
And there's actually one thing that I connected immediately. The whole thing that Ian Malcolm does with the droplet of water in the movie, in the book, it's not him at all. And it's actually, in the movie, it's actually the only thing they use to explain the chaos theory. While in the book, they are always talking about it. It's completely different.
And I think that's just because, like, if they'd have spent, the movie would have had to be way longer, first of all, because how much time did he spend going over the same exact ideas in the book and like explaining them? And it would have just been like a lot of dialogue. And as much as I would have enjoyed seeing that much more of Jeff Goldblum,
wouldn't we all?
True. But I don't think it would have worked as well on the screen.
Yeah. I think it definitely lends itself more to a writing format to develop out the science more. Just because I don't think it's as necessarily as like accessible to everybody.
Yeah.
Where I think a lot of people see Jurassic Park just because of the adventure and the dinosaurs and that kind of thing, not necessarily because of the science behind it.
I will say,
you know, a science nerd like me is like, oh my god, this is cool.
I will say though that like this is one of those stories, and I think I know why I feel this way, where I don't necessarily think that the book or the movie is specifically better. Like normally I have a strong opinion either way. I think this type of story lends itself better to being a movie, but I do think some things were done better in the book. And so I think they end up being about even in my brain. And my theory as to why is because when Michael Crichton was writing this, he had actually sold the screenplay rights before the book was even finished. Like they were planning on making this a movie before the book was even published.
That's what I was saying before. When you
when you disconnected, he was talking about that. And I think that's a really interesting fact that it almost has a Game of Thrones effect to it. To where obviously the Game of Thrones TV show and the Game of Thrones books are so different now because they basically split off and they're doing their own thing.
Right.
And I think that kind of has that same feel to it with this. That neither one is better or worse than the other. They're both equally good and equal separate things.
Well, and especially because, like, for this, the book and the movie they're so different. Like, for being the same story, for being, like, a direct adaptation, like, they're literally, like, it's the same story, but they're so different. Like, all of the characters feel like they're totally different. Though, I will say, the one thing that I will for sure say that the movie 100% does better than the book does, I don't like Michael Crichton's dialogue. I cannot with Michael Crichton's dialogue.
Sometimes it's a bit weird.
Like I don't know. It's just reading it. I'm like, nobody talks like that. Like that's not.
That's a similar thing when I read Dragon Teeth. I was like, okay, the story is interesting. The settings and the characters are very cool. But his dialogue is not the best.
Well, right. I don't think he's necessarily the best at writing like fleshed out characters, but I do think he's really good at writing like the pseudoscience, like the premise. Like the premise for his books is always really interesting. And it's something that I'm like, oh, I'm compelled. I want to learn this story. But then as I'm actually reading it, I find myself getting taken out of it because I can't with the dialogue. Like I'm like, nobody talks like this. And because the characters don't, like, it feels like he puts them each there for a specific function in the story and they don't feel like real people.
Yeah.
And that's because his books are like, they're more plot driven. Like Jurassic Park's definitely a plot driven story. It's not a character story, but I think because I'm like a character reader.
Yeah.
That for me, I'm like, this is like, this person is here to be here for like this definitive amount of time. We kill them off, we move on, and we don't really miss them because they served their purpose.
Yeah,
So
one character that we feel that a lot with, I think, is Nedry. He is like basically the person that creates the whole problem, but then he dies, and
then it's like, okay,
they take like ages to find him, even, and no one
or to
even
even
notices
really
he's
start
gone.
looking for him. Like the computers are out,
Yeah.
you don't bother to start looking for the guy who could fix
Yeah,
it.
no, you're like,
Yeah.
go look for him. Oh, he's not in the building. Okay.
He'll come back eventually. Like what?
and
Yeah.
so then he's dead, and then he's dead, and that's it. That
No,
there's no more.
You're totally
there's
right, because
no more worrying.
he's the catalyst. He like causes the whole problem, at
Yeah.
least in a technical sense. Like he's doing it because he got paid, but he agreed to it because he was bitter that they were too demanding or something. I don't know. His motivation was not very clear. And
No, I think
No,
it
it
was just the
definitely was
money
not.
that was offered to him.
it was the money, but then it was like something he said, like in like it was like an internal monologue thing where he was just like, I agreed to do it, and then they wanted me to do this, and I was like, okay, so you were bitter because they wanted you to do what they hired you for, and then this other person hired you to sabotage everything, and you were like, yeah, all right.
Yeah, I never
that's
did
actually-
understand his motivations. Like,
Yeah.
And like
it was
money's a
like-
strong motivator, so I guess, but like also come on, bro.
But that's
Yeah.
but that's one thing, like, actually, that the movie also does a little better. Is the movie is better at giving the characters motivations and personalities, kind of.
Yeah, right.
Because in the movie, you just know he is this greedy bastard who's gonna fuck everything up.
Right.
You just know it from the beginning when he starts shouting the other guy's name who is trying to be discreet and stuff. You just know he is like gonna do something bad.
Yeah.
But in the
And
book, he is just there, and then suddenly he goes and steals the embryos and he takes them, but he's lost, and that's just it. You don't really understand what he wants and what he needs and where he's going. You just don't.
Yeah, I just feel like each of the characters was definitely not handled especially well, like you said. Like, it's like you're talking about, like they're each there for a purpose. Like Nedry's there to cause a problem, and then once he causes the problem, he's just dead, and then it's like, whatever, now there's a problem. So
Yeah. And then Hammond as well. He's like dies, and then where's Hammond? Oh, he's dead. We found he's dead.
Yeah,
Let's
and they
just
like
go.
barely address the fact that he died. They're just like, oh yeah, he's dead. The compies got him. And we're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I feel like I have closure now. That's great.
I was kind of surprised reading through the book at how much I disliked Hammond, because in the movie he kind of comes across as like, obviously someone who's naive on what he's created,
naive, lovable,
but
slightly eccentric, but like overall a decent guy who just like didn't know what he was doing.
And
then in the book he's like,
children.
Yeah, in the book he's like constantly told, hey, this is wrong, this is gonna get messed up, this is broke.
And then he's just like, don't care, do it anyway.
No, do it. And I'm like,
and then when everything is going completely to shit, he's like, it's okay, we're gonna do it in another place. Dude, haven't you learned anything yet?
Yeah,
Jesus.
that's why I was like, I don't
me-
like this character in the book, and
what
in the
kills
movie
me about
like,
Hammond is like the reason he's having people to the island in the book, at least. I don't remember if this is the same premise in the movie, but like he has people there so that they can check and make sure everything's like safe and okay. But he brought children there when he's not totally sure if everything's gonna be okay.
Well, I think in his mind everything is okay, and he's just doing this because like
a
insurance
formality
or whatever.
Yeah.
And so in his mind, he wants to bring his grandkids because it's supposed to be this safe family place, and he wants his grandkids to experience it first, type thing.
Well, right, and like, well, this will distract them because their parents are getting divorced, but it's also kind of like, there's dinosaurs here, man. Like,
But
there are
like
living dinosaurs.
Oh yeah.
But in his head, everything was a-okay.
Exactly. I liked how they mixed kind of the characters in the movies, because we see that, for example, like the first movie of the Jurassic World that came out later, well, the first one of the sequel, we see a lot of the things from the kids in the first movie or in the first book that were supposed to be in the first movie but were not, and then turn out to be in the Jurassic World one. Because, for example, in the first movie, you don't really realize that the kids are having the parents divorced. They are just invited there, and they are there. That's
Right.
it. But in the first Jurassic World movie, you get our parents are being divorced thing, so we're gonna look at this and we're gonna be distracted and blah 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 blah. And there
They
are a lot
definitely,
of
yeah.
things that they mix up in the different movies, and I like that.
Mhm.
But in the first movie, the difference between Hammond from the book and the movie, I think, is that he actually in the movie cares about the grandchildren, and he actually wants to bring them there so that they can have fun and everything, and he actually loves them. And in the book, he is like, these damn kids, I should have never brought them here. They ruined everything. Blah blah blah. So again, he comes off as this self-centered guy who doesn't really care about anyone in
Very
the
much
book,
so.
and in the movie he is the lovable, naive old man. So it's completely different. I think the only character that actually stuck to what it originally was in the book was Ian Malcolm.
Yeah, for
He is the
sure.
only one that is exactly the same.
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
Ellie's personality is pretty similar, I think. Like
Yeah.
Ellie's, yeah,
Mhm.
but what I dislike about the book is that she's barely there. Like
Mhm.
she is in it at the beginning.
Yeah.
And then it kind of like steps away from her because she's taking care of like the sick dinosaur. And that she's like kind of like she disappears and all the action is going on like elsewhere. She's like, first she's taking care of the dinosaur, then she's taking care of Ian Malcolm, and she's only in it for little bits at a time until she's like bait for velociraptors, and she just like
And
doesn't.
she's running across the building and jumping into the
Right.
pool.
And she just like, I feel like she's just like doesn't have as much to
Impact.
do in the
Yeah.
book as she did in the movie. And I think that just in general, like, and this you can see too when they like flip the kids' ages and they make like Lex the computer, genius or whatever in the movie. I think that the movie is just like a lot friendlier to its female characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
And-
a great thing that I actually liked was that in the movie they kind of split the two things that the kids like. Lex goes for the computers, and Tim still likes the dinosaurs.
Right.
And in the book, it's like Tim likes the dinosaurs. Tim knows about computers. Tim knows
And
this. Tim knows
Lex
that.
is just there. She's
being
just
annoying.
there to be
Yeah.
annoying. Like it drives me nuts.
She likes sports. That's it.
And of course it's like it's the girl and she's younger and she's the one who's like just causing a nuisance for everybody. And like I get really agitated about like female characters getting like kind of getting the shitty treatment in books because it happens so often, especially in like sci-fi and thrillers and like the genres that I read.
Yeah.
Especially in like slightly older sci-fi too.
Yeah, right.
Like, it
and
seems like anything like before like 2000, like
it's like anything before 2000s, and it was written by a male author. It's like the female characters either are hypersexual and serve very little other function, or they're just there to be annoying. And so I'm really like sensitive to that because I'm like, can we not?
Yeah,
please.
Yeah.
I'm totally feel the same way because I felt that a little bit in his other book I read. I still want to read his books because I still enjoy them, but it definitely doesn't have as much inclusion as I would like.
Well, and as you're reading, like I know that that's a thing in like because sci-fi, we all know, is like my brand, it's my genre, right? But like
it's my love.
It has my heart. It has from a pretty young age, but like I know that like a lot of the books that I'm gonna pick up are gonna do that, so I kind of have to just like take it with a grain of salt and accept it and like be happy that things are getting a little better now. So like I'm sensitive to it, but I also have to be like, I mean, look at what you're reading, look at what the target audience was at the time, look at who was writing it, like so it's one of those things that like I'm not going to let the fact that that particular thing bothers me stop me from like reading an entire genre, or like I'm not going to only read things that were like published after, a certain date or whatever. Cause like, I mean, I have like shelves of sci-fi that was published in the 50s and 60s, and like those, if there's women at all, they're like barely there. So, but I'm not going to be like, nope, not reading John Wyndham anymore because he doesn't have good female characters.
Yeah, I've totally
Stop reading
like
sci-fi.
have felt that.
Just giving up on sci-fi, guys. Switching the channel name. Fuck it all.
Exactly.
So with this series I've been doing, where I've been reading like the 52 SFF,
Yeah.
I've totally felt that because so many of them are older, like at least earlier than the 90s. A lot of them are the 50s, 60s, 70s, and so it's been rough reading that and kind of like understanding that it's a different time. You got to understand that, and it's really hard, but
I'm a little less forgiving of stuff that was published in like the 90s because I remember being alive during that time.
Like if I was alive, it should be better.
Like I read Meg when Erica from Perks of Books was doing her like read along for it. I read Meg, and my biggest issue with that book was that the female characters, it was like every time that a female character came up, first of all, there were only 2 of them, and one of them was like definitely like really cunning and smart and whatever, but she was an evil bitch. Right. And the other one was like, she went from being like really annoying and like whiny character to suddenly being like the love interest. Right. So, but every time either of them came up in the book, it was like the lead into their description was what their boobs looked like, basically. So and as I'm reading it, I'm like, this is fucking nonsense and I hate it. But and I got into it, like somebody was trying to be like, well, and okay, because I tweeted something and I was like, this is a prime example of male writers not knowing how to write female characters, which like, yes, is a generalization, right? It is. I know this, but you have how many characters in a tweet? I wasn't going to go into like a whole, well, I know it's not everybody, whatever. But somebody was just like, well, that seems like a broad generalization. And they like kind of got really agitated with me for saying that. And then they were like, well, maybe it's just because you only read newer stuff. And I'm like, that book was published in like 1998. So
it shouldn't be like
I was like 9 years old then. I remember the world.
Yeah, I definitely feel that with a lot of the older stuff I've been reading. So it sucks, but you kind of just have to be like, okay, different time, different era.
But I do appreciate that with Jurassic Park in the movie, the female characters are definitely like more prevalent, are definitely the ones that kind of like save the day. So
and I feel like
I can get into that.
Movies kind of adapted quicker than books in some of the sense. I feel like that's a lot more common to see that kind of change in movies before we start to see them more prominent in books, which I think is...
I kind of get that because it's a lot easier to sell a movie than it is to sell a book. Books take longer, and if you get a little bit of a longer, boring part, people give up on it easier. While a movie is just there, and if you get to the end, you liked it. If you didn't, you didn't.
Yeah. Well, and I also feel like with the whole like adapting to the changing like social climate a little bit more. I think it's partly because like movies are more of like a family activity. So like people are going to see a movie, whether it's one that they wouldn't necessarily have been interested in or not. Cause like I saw Jurassic Park when I was a kid, not because I was like, yeah, that looks great, but because like my family was going to the movies and it was my brother's turn to pick. So like, I think as a way of having more like mass appeal, movies tend to adapt to like social change a lot quicker, like in general.
I also feel like movies are more attuned to their audience, where I feel like writers sometimes are more blocked off, and isolated.
Yeah, writers
and it also takes longer, obviously, to write a book in some cases.
Well, and writers
some people not, but
go like more toward a target audience too, like books. Because first of all, not everybody reads anyway, right?
Yeah,
and like most people see movies, even if they don't necessarily, it's not their favorite entertainment. Like in passing, somebody's going to see a movie at some, you know what I mean? Whereas like books, you kind of, it's more of a thing where people who want to read will seek them out. And I think that like writers tend to like be targeting people that they already know are going to like their books. So it's more of a like focused, less of a mass appeal situation. and especially with stuff like this, with the thrillers like Jurassic Park, anything by Crichton, and anything that could be classified as like the men's adventure genre, which apparently is an actual genre, and it's not just adventure, it's men's adventure. I saw this at the bookstore the other day. I was like, get out of here. But
I feel like a lot of science fiction that is more adventure or thriller based is targeted towards male audiences more than female.
Yeah.
Whereas more of it's I don't know, like
if it's like way more speculative, if it's like, oh, this is aliens.
Yeah.
We're gonna go to space, or like, you know, dystopian stuff. I do feel like that tends to be more like
The sci-fi
neutral, more like
especially dystopian almost, especially like if you get into the YA dystopian, almost borderlines targeting female audience. But
well, and I think the closer you get to like YA, like I think YA books now tend to be more geared toward like a female audience.
Yeah, because I guess it's more common to see, and this puzzles me. I mean, kind of. It's more normal to see young women reading than young men.
Yeah,
guys,
I've seen
whatever.
like statistics about that or whatever,
Yeah.
and it's one of those things where it's like a stereotypically female activity, which makes no sense.
I guess
at all.
What I can guess from that is that since books is a more quiet activity, nor kind of the usual boy doesn't really stay there and prefers to go play some football or play, PlayStation or computer games.
I'm excited. New age is video games.
All that. Although there are a lot of girls into that as well, but you get that kind of separation there. You know,
well, and
females like the quiet a little more than males. Males just go off.
I also feel like it depends on what you're reading, because like with like novels, that's definitely true. It's like you see more girls reading novels and you see more like of that. But when you shift over into like comics, I to this day as an adult woman have people try to like recommend and explain comics to me when I'm shopping for them, because like it's not a girl thing.
Wow.
Yeah. So many times.
You're a girl, okay?
No, I was like at Barnes and Noble. I was like looking to see if they had like, I think it was before I had gotten volume 6 of Descender, maybe. I don't know. No, that's stupid. I pre-ordered that. That doesn't make any sense. But I was looking for something specific, but some guy walks up to me and he was just like, hey, what you looking for? He didn't work there. He was just some guy, right? He was just like, oh, are you looking for something? I was like, I'm just looking. Thanks. And then he picks up like Scott Pilgrim, which is definitely, it's like a romance. So I think it's like a more girly comic. Which is dumb. It's like a fantasy romance, but it's a romance. So he picks it up and he's just like, oh, have you read these? They're really great. And I'm like, yup. I've read those. Please leave me
Please
alone.
go away.
I've had that happen to me in like the adult like sci-fi fantasy section.
Oh yeah, that happens to me there all the time. And I'm like, this is my home. Go away.
Like this like he was probably in his 20s, like, you know, buff jock, you know, type guy. Like clearly goes to the gym and lifts like a ton and whatnot.
Right.
He's like, I think you mean to be like 2 miles over. The YA fantasy is over there. And I'm like, hello? Thank you, but I actually meant to be here.
No, that same guy who was like asking about comics was like, yeah, I've read those. And then I busted out like, have you read? And I went with Descender because it's the one people least expect a girl to read.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, it's a hard sci-fi about like android or like, you know, artificial intelligence in space. And I like went into all my feelings about the art style and just like laid a whole rant on him. And he was just like, oh, okay. And he like backed away slowly.
Yeah.
I have to be honest, I don't see that a lot here in Portugal because I don't think people actually do that. Or they might even think it, but
but they just keep it to themselves like a
Yeah,
reasonable
exactly.
person would. Yeah.
They don't invade your space
I
unless
do
you're
think
going out at night. So
definitely a cultural thing. Like Americans are always in each other's faces all the
there's
time,
actually
and
it's interesting
nonsense.
because a lot of actors and actresses and famous people from America, some of them come here and they say that we like going to Portugal because no one no one comes close to us. We can see people looking at us and pointing and stuff, but no one comes and bother us. No one wants to do that, so they're like left in peace. They're left alone.
Yeah. No,
Americans are like nosy and judgy and
well, I'm like, I live in
like
the
to get all up
Midwest,
in your business.
so I live in the everyone's and everybody's business part of America too. So, like, and I'm not
That's the
everybody
South,
should
too.
be. Oh yeah, no, for sure. Actually, I did know because I was, I was just in the South for my vacation. I went through Tennessee and I was like went down to Louisiana, and like but at least there it felt more friendly. Like, and everybody there admits it. Like, we were in New Orleans and everybody was just like, you know what? Yeah, if you sit at the bar, somebody's going to come up and talk to you. Like, if you are like just walking through somewhere, like, and they were like, and anything you know about anybody, like, we gossip here. Everyone knows everyone's, like, everybody's very open about it. You come to like the Midwest and like people don't really know because like everybody's like tries to be friendly, but it's like it's got a more of an aggressive like edge to it, and I don't know why.
People probably think I'm like super arrogant or something because like when I go to stores and stuff like that, I'll put like headphones in and like clearly try to not talk to anybody because I do not want anybody approaching me. And I'm like, just leave me alone. But if you don't, like, I get stopped at least once by a random person I don't know and making a comment about something. And I'm like, I don't need this. I don't need this. Just leave me alone.
I get it a ton when I'm book or music shopping, like because I shop at like used record stores. I collect vinyl, and so I'll get people who walk up to me and I'll try to be like, oh, like I'm gonna help, whatever. And it just happens to be like people are in my business there all the time, or like bookstores, like I was just talking about with comics where somebody's in there, or like I'm in the adult sci-fi section, like please stop, just please stop. But no, or if I'm at clothing stores, I get that a lot. And that I usually get because people come up to me and they're like, oh, you're really tall. And I'm like, yes, I'm aware of that. Thank you. Thank you for commenting on the fact that I know I won't be able to find jeans here.
Yeah. Hey guys, I have a question actually.
Okay.
There were two different kinds of extreme things that happened while I was reading the book. An extremely funny moment where I just laughed out loud and then the most not annoying, but the moment that got me really angry and I was kind of expecting it, but I hoped they wouldn't do that. So which moment was this for you? Was there any moment that was really bad for you or really, really funny?
I think for me, like a bad moment was Ian Malcolm. I was really frustrated with that because he was the only character I really attached to.
Yeah.
So I was pretty mad about that. I did not enjoy, the fact that he
died.
was killed.
Yeah.
But as far as funny moments, I felt like I didn't really have any like super humorous moments. I feel like if there was any, it was Ian Malcolm again, be like, "You're an idiot."
Yeah, I feel like he was there to be the voice of reason, but also kind of the comic relief because the whole time he was like, "Knew that was going to happen, but nobody listens to me."
Yeah. And he's like the only character I really attached to. It was like, I love your character, and it might be leftover. It's because from movie as well.
You kept picturing Jeff Goldblum. We all did. It's fine. I get it. Okay.
and it was so weird to me because we're used to seeing him in almost all the Jurassic Park movies, and to have him die in the first book is like, wait, what?
I know. I'm like, what am I going to do whenever he next
It's like when he's there lying down on the bed and going into a coma and everything, you're like, okay, he's really, really doing bad, but he's going to survive. And then when they get to the last scene, he's dead, and you're like,
I haven't read the second book, but I've read like a summary of it, and from my understanding, he's not actually dead. So I don't know how they pull that off.
That's confusing.
It's very confusing because, like I said, I haven't actually read it, so like maybe I'm totally off base there. But like I read, because after I read the book the first time, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to continue the series, but like I want to know like what exactly, like how did they continue this or whatever. Yeah. So I looked it up and it was just like Ian Malcolm didn't actually die, and I'm like, how'd that happen? What are you talking about? Like park. He's dead and he's still on the island, and they were gonna like blow it up. Also. Like I don't get it. It's just I feel like it's just like an inconsistency where they were like, oh right, he's the only character that's any good. So we're just gonna be like, never mind, he's not dead.
Yeah, he's not. Oh snap! Wait, he's not dead.
He's actually like a magician, and he vanished into thin air and rematerialized. Like I don't understand how, but I think that he's not actually dead.
If not that's sure the why. Case, I kind of hate it when that happens because like you go through and you have this emotional plot line and then and everything, and then like, oh wait, he was everybody's favorite, let's just undo that with this weird
that kind of goes back to they like I feel like it goes back to the whole like Crichton's characters have to have some sort of purpose. And so like he doesn't necessarily care about like continuity or anything like that. He's just like, oh well, this character needs to be here to tell everybody they're being stupid, so we're gonna bring him back. Wait, even though I killed him off. Like I guess I guess I got rid of him too soon.
Exactly. I like Firecat. She's like the only love characters. They must have airlifted him out.
And I really like the idea of him riding the dinosaur off the island.
Riding the dinosaur off the island. That's amazing.
I think that's great. I would do that. 10 out of 10.
So I guess if Jurassic Park was a real place, would you all go?
Well,
depends. It depends.
Was it gonna end up
are we going for this initial weekend, or are we going after like?
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know.
I think I'd risk the initial weekend just to see some real life dinosaurs.
I feel like I would do that if I could bring like a flamethrower.
Let me bring an armored truck.
Let me just like really, and like I mean, I feel like more gas-powered vehicles would have been wise. It's kind of like the Titanic, where like they didn't have enough lifeboats, like because they were like, well, everything's fine, it's unsinkable.
In the park, it's like everything is electric. Like, oh wait, what if the power goes down?
Right, and okay, but how is the electricity all operated on one switch? I feel like as a safeguard, you would need to have like.
I mean,
more than one backup, like more than one unit of auxiliary power, and you would need to like not have it be like somebody could accidentally bump one thing and shut off all the power on the island.
Oh yeah, and then you have the problem. Well,
like there should have been, because like there should have been control rooms and like there should have been some more safeguards against a power outage, especially since your main thing is electric fences. Like, or at least have the fences on a separate. Thing like an entirely separate
every
thing.
Section of the park should have its own generator, like solar powered, like
and control room. And control, because how are you gonna run the whole island from this tiny room without anything bad going?
Also, Firecats makes a point, and I think I agree. I would not go because this is on an island and they have hurricanes and dinosaurs. So...
Hurricanes, oh my tsunamis, earthquakes, and dinosaurs.
Yeah, like what if there's a lot of rain that year?
Dino, what is it? Sharknado? It should be the Dino-nado?
Yeah,
Dinosaurs flying around.
Dinado, yeah.
Yeah, just dinosaurs. It'd be like in Twister, that scene with the tornado and the cow, but it would be like a velociraptor.
T-Rex.
I have one question.
Okay.
How is suddenly Costa Rica the country like with the best hospitals in the world? They don't even have people to run them.
Well, right. In that initial scene too, there was like a
They're like,
random
oh my
doctor
god.
working out of a tent. Like, I just was like,
Yeah, and suddenly, apparently, they have amazing hospitals with amazing equipment, but we never see them. They always go to tents. Oh my god,
Yeah.
there's a problem. We can't get to the hospital. Let's go to this tent. It's the most advanced hospital in the world, but okay, we can't get there. Never mind. Costa Rica just seems such an amazing place, like peaceful with amazing hospitals and amazing conditions. I don't think that I don't. I mean, I was 1 year old when the book and the movie came out, so I'm not very the perfect person to talk about that. But was Costa Rica that great back then?
I mean, I was pretty young, so I might not really have been paying attention to world events, but so
Yeah.
far as I know, no.
Yeah, it doesn't.
I
I
would say,
think-
as far as I know, I
don't think that like it was necessarily that. I think it was one of those things where like Costa Rica is a small country and people in the rest of the world, or at least like in the US where like Michael Crichton's writing from and where like a lot of where he thought his books were going to be sold, people weren't paying enough attention to like care
really
if
know.
that was
Yeah.
accurate.
Yeah, but it's weird because he
So-
gets so many scientific facts right, and so many things related to DNA and to sci-fi and everything that he talks about a lot right, and then he lets that slide. It's like you missed something there, dude. Or again,
Yeah.
something that was just for his story, and that's it. Because suddenly they have helicopters and ships that for the army from Costa Rica that just get into the island and take them out, and destroy the whole island. Apparently, they have that kind of power.
I mean, I know that Costa Rica is fairly advanced now, but I don't know about, in 1990 when
Back
he
then.
wrote it.
Yeah.
I
don't
was
know.
-1 then, so.
Yeah, in 1990, I was 1 year old, but
Well, no, 1990 I was -4.
yeah,
But
but like when
1995 I was 1. So,
yeah, when the movie came out, I was like 6. But so it's just
can we
crazy
talk
world.
about the scene where they give the young raptor, who is so nice and sweet, to the two adult ones that are trying to kill them, and the two adult ones just eat the little one alive and
Yeah.
fight over it. And I'm like, when they start thinking about giving the little one to them when they are not bred there, or they were but like a long time ago, and they never really connected with the little one, and when they start thinking about this, when I start thinking to myself, this can only go one way, and I don't like it. And then
Yeah.
they give it like, oh, we're saved, they're smelling it and stuff, and then suddenly one of them eats it alive and the other one starts fighting over it. And it's so graphic how much they describe the whole thing, like the
Yeah, it
little
was
one
not
being
a
torn apart.
necessary
I was like,
amount of
that was the
description.
scene I hated the much. I was like, the most. I was like,
Yeah.
why?
It was
He was
rough.
the only sweet and cute one. Why would you give it away like that?
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things where like it's a situation where they're trying to like save themselves. So I get why they did it, but it's also one of those things, especially because like the whole thing was that they thought the island and all the dinosaurs needed to be destroyed for safety, right? So like I guess that dinosaur's fate was not going to be good anyway.
Yeah.
But I
that
feel
part, I
like if it
hated
had been
that
like an explosion on the island, it would have more closely mirrored their actual original extinction as opposed to like being ripped apart by the other
Yeah.
velociraptors, which was definitely graphic and kind of gross.
That part was so horrible. That was the part that I hated the most. And one part that didn't really make sense to me a lot was it. At least it made more sense to me in the movie, which is where like the Tyrannosaurus Rex, just in the movie, he sees you, tries to kill you, and then you run off. You manage to escape, and he's like, "Oh, whatever. I'm just gonna find something else," because he's not that hungry. He actually just ate the goat. He ate God knows how many people, and so he's like, "Yeah, whatever. I can't catch it. I can't catch up. I'll just go find something else." In the book, he just won't let go.
Yeah.
Or it's a she. She's like sleeping, then she wakes up, she sees them going down the river, she chases after them, she fails, she swims for it, she fails again. She tries to come through the side of the river, but she's blocked by the trees, and she fails again. And she just goes on trying to kill them for God knows how long.
Well, and I don't
think-
know if that was just because like T-Rex is the dinosaur people think of when they think of scary dinosaur, and so that was like the kind of main villain during all of it. But like I definitely think the Velociraptors were more successful at being like a menacing villain.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, and I think he just kind of wanted to show like a predatory instinct, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
and
I like the
kind
young
of continue moving the plot without like having to change too much. I guess.
Also, there were 2 T-Rexes apparently.
Yeah. And why?
A little one
There's
and
no
a big
reason
one.
for the little one. Yeah, the little one is just there. He kills one guy who just isn't very useful as well, which was the guide. And then he disappears. The little one, she disappears, but then she appears again to call off the Tyrannosaurus from the boat because she just runs off chasing after the little one, and that's it. And then she shows up again somewhere else. I don't know. I don't know why she's there. Seriously.
Yeah, I think the best thing from the book to the movie is that some of the kind of extra scenes got edited out.
Yeah, because a lot of
there's
them were
so many that you're like,
necessary.
you're reading this, and I'm like, I don't really need this.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's not really adding anything to the book.
Add to the fact that you know the whole Tyrannosaurus is supposed to be very scary and stuff, and when he describes the Tyrannosaurus, while the Tyrannosaurus is looking at other dinosaurs on the other side of the fence, wiggling the arms in frustration, I just couldn't stop laughing about that.
Yeah, that's because it's just like watching like a little kid throw a tantrum, like, come on!
I laughed so hard that the whole
think,
respect for it just goes out the window.
So one of the scenes that made me the angriest, but I also think was one of the best indicators of like how little Hammond cared about like what he was actually doing, like how little he actually researched for. He was saying like, oh no, we've done so much research. We're so prepared. Like excuse you. No, we know like what we're doing or whatever. One of the best indicators that he was entirely full of shit is like right near the beginning when they get to the island and Ellie is like, this plant is poisonous. If anyone touches it, they will die.
Yeah.
And they're like,
it can't be that bad.
Yeah.
It's fine.
No one ever touches it, so it's fine, whatever. Yeah.
Especially because that was like supposed to be in like the visitor area near the pool or whatever, where there were going to be like young kids staying. And she's like, if a child accidentally brushes against this, they will probably die. And then they were just like, nah, it's fine. And she,
not only
like,
that,
this is literally what I do. Like, I'm a paleobotanist. I'm telling you, this is a bad idea.
The other thing is like, you know, when they come to the island, they're like, well, a dinosaur's gotten off because we clearly found one on the coast of Costa Rica.
And they're like,
like,
nope, not possible. It'll die anyway.
Possible.
They can't.
Yeah, they can't
like,
go out.
They're breeding, and they're like, no, they're not.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they are though.
I thought it was so funny that they basically created, you know, the parameters to check the dinosaurs, and the guy's like, plug in this number, and they're like, oh, there's that many dinosaurs now.
Yeah,
like,
I like
plug
that
in this number.
They only had it set for the number that they were expecting to have, so it was only going to notice if there were less.
How is that? Yeah, that's so dumb. Like, why would you look for the ones that you're expecting? Just look for the general.
It was so they'd be alerted if one of them had died or something, but like,
how
would you never note it? Well, and first, okay, so some of them probably did, like, you know, get hunted by each other or whatever, right? In theory. And they had that thing that would tell them like the distribution of how many of each species they had. Even if they were getting the total number that they were expecting, were they not paying attention to like, oh yeah, we have like the right number of dinosaurs, but we don't have the right number of like this kind of dinosaur?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, predators wouldn't really change, and it was the smaller dinosaurs that would have been the ones being eaten and then, like, you know, that kind of thing that was like reproducing. So they would have just kept on reproducing, and the predators just would have kept on hunting.
Well, and they weren't really paying attention to the velociraptors, which were breeding.
Yeah.
Because they were like, off in
they're
that
in this
separate enclosure or
cage.
whatever.
Yeah.
And
They
I don't
can't
think
get
they
out the
even
cage.
had those in the total count, really.
Yeah.
Also,
They needed to
actually,
microchip their
microchip a
butts.
dinosaur, just like
Yeah,
you would your
exactly.
cat, you know? That's important. Microchip your dinosaurs, kids. It's the important lesson to take away from this.
Yeah, exactly.
So, any last thoughts?
neuter,
Because I'm going to
you
have
know?
to be off here soon.
Yeah, I have one. How do they never understand what Ian Malcolm is saying?
Yeah, no.
It's so easy to understand. Like, you're dealing with nature, something bad and unexpected is going to happen. Nature hasn't been, held.
You can't control it.
You can't control nature. You have never been able to control nature. So it's not gonna start now. And they're like, I don't get what he's saying. He's talking nonsense again. You're like, how is he talking nonsense? You just created something like this and you don't even want to think about it.
Well, and like, why'd you even hire him as a consultant in the first place if you were
Yeah.
just going to be like,
Yeah.
you're not saying what I want you to say, so like,
Yeah.
whatever,
He
I don't care.
He
It
didn't
doesn't
even
make-
want to go.
No.
He was like, no way I'm
Well,
going there.
I
And they
just think
forced
it's-
him.
I just think it's wild that they hired consultants and they didn't tell any of them what they were actually doing. So like they were just asking Grant about like dinosaur diets or whatever, right? And
Yeah.
then they hired Malcolm and Malcolm was like, this isn't gonna go well, guys. And they were just like, well, whatever, he's crazy. And like,
Yeah.
okay, then why'd you hire a consultant to
Yeah.
like whatever? I don't
He was-
understand the
He was
reasoning.
hired to tell them that everything was fine. And then
Yeah,
when
he was
doesn't,
just there to
they're
tell them
like,
what they wanted
whatever.
to hear.
He's
If
crazy.
that's not the most like typical like thing I've ever
Yeah.
heard, it's just like, you're not telling me what I want to hear, so I'm just going to pretend that you don't exist. Like, that's
You're
such
crazy.
a human thing to do. That's like such an arrogant, nonsensical thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my last thought. Like, he's so easy to understand. How does
Well,
no
and
one
he spent
ever
so
understand
much
him?
time being like, let me break it down and make it easier for you.
Let me help so that way I can explain it all and you not listen.
And then they were just like, meh.
And it's
Like, I don't
actually the
agree.
same thing in the last Jurassic World when he comes in again. It's actually exactly the same thing again. He says,
Mhm.
"Let the island go to shit. Let them be extinct if they are extinct, because they were made to be extinct. They were extinct before. They aren't supposed to exist now." And people are like, no, we're gonna get them anyway. The guy has
Pretty
been
much.
doing and saying the same thing for like 30 years. Listen to him for
Well,
once.
and you can't recreate an environment on a planet that is just like
Yeah, it's
geographically
not
and
the same,
ecologically like not the same. Like even if you plant those plants, like you don't know if those plants can actually survive in that soil. You don't know whatever.
Yeah.
Even with the help of like people who study dinosaurs, that like all throughout the book, like Grant is saying, like we're learning new stuff we had no idea about every day, and everything that they're learning is like speculation anyhow because they don't
Mhm.
have facts to reference. They're just like, oh, this dinosaur might have had feathers, actually.
Yeah.
We're learning
Yeah.
now. Like, so trusting what a paleontologist is saying about it is really just being like, this is what we think we know right now. And I feel like it's a risky venture to go based on that and be like, well, we can bring them back to life.
Well, not only that, but wasn't Grant at the start of the book just finding like his first Velociraptor like nest,
Yeah.
like to study? Like,
Mhm.
so it's like,
Well, and because they
barely
were
even scratched the surface.
they were cloning the dinosaurs and they had no way of knowing which dinosaur DNA they were getting from
Yeah.
the bugs in the amber. They were just like, well, we're just gonna clone this
Yeah, we
and
just-
hope that it's a
yeah.
dinosaur we have any information about.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
kind of amazed that they didn't discover a species that had been as yet undiscovered, honestly.
They probably had, and it was like, we don't know what this is. Nobody knows.
We don't want this one. Just throw it in the trash. But it's actually interesting because there was a guy who studied this and kind of proved that
Oh.
the size of dinosaurs that were back then, the brachiosaurs and stuff like that, wouldn't be possible in the world we have today, because they wouldn't. It would be too heavy for a dinosaur to even stand on the earth today. Elephants, the biggest elephants, are like on the the verge of it becoming impossible to live on Earth. So even gravitational pull would have to be different back then, which kind of proves that there was a meteor and everything, and that the Earth's mass grew from then to now. So it's really interesting because if it was in the real world, apparently the biggest dinosaurs wouldn't even be possible.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really interesting.
Firecats posted that someone posted on Goodreads that the Lost World is perhaps based off the aftermath of the first movie and not the book, and that's why Ian Malcolm could survive.
Yeah,
and I think that's very interesting.
I feel like you'd have to read it to know for sure, because like maybe it's one of those things where it is based on the book and like he survived and there's some wacky backdoor explanation as to how, or maybe they're just like, nope, the movie is the official like canon first thing that happened and we're just moving on from there.
Yeah.
Either one could be. I will say, because this is the second time I've read this book, that the first time I like physically read the book and I liked it a lot less than I did reading it the second time when I listened to the audio. So like I liked it more through audio. So I'm wondering if this is just a story that is better told through
audio and pictures than
audio pictures. Like, because I did say it, like it's one of those things. Like the dialogue also like made me less furious, and I think it's just because I wasn't like looking at it and noticing as much when like he had characters word for word say the exact same thing, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and I think so that was kind of interesting because the first time I read it, I wasn't even sure if I was going to reread it before we did this discussion because I was like, I don't know if I can do it again. I think it was like, I was just like this, because it's a story that I like, but it was just like actually reading it was really frustrating. Yeah. And I think the audio made it less so. So that's kind of interesting also.
I can see that. I did a mix of audio and reading. As I've probably have mentioned 1,000 times, Ariella is not letting me read physical books right now. So audiobooks and ebooks have been amazing.
Yeah, so, I was listening to it in the car on the way to New Orleans because we drove to New Orleans and it was like a 15-hour drive or something absurd. And I was listening to it in the car because I wanted to physically read, but I was getting like motion sick. So
yeah, I can't do that in the car anymore. I don't know what it is. I used to read all the time.
I have to be like sitting on the passenger side and like leaning against the door, like so that my eyes are traveling the same direction as the car is, basically, in order to not get car sick. But if I do that, I can't wear a seatbelt, and I don't trust anyone I know to drive that safely. So,
so do we want to? Before we started, I looked at the voting for the next book. I'm going to refresh and make sure none of the votes have changed.
Yeah, I feel like it was looking like Watchmen when I looked.
And between Twitter and Goodreads, we have the Star Tower Legion has 3 votes. Justice Artillery.
Ancillary Justice.
Ancillary. I can't read, okay?
No, it's fine. It's a weird word, too.
Trail of Lightning has 9 votes and Watchmen has 10 votes. So it looks like our next book
looking like Watchmen.
April-ish will be Watchmen, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Nice. Yay. I actually haven't heard a lot about Watchmen, but I do want to read it.
I watched the movie when it came out. I have not read the full graphic novel yet.
Yeah, I watched the movie too, and I really liked it, but the novel, I haven't even seen the cover. So
oh yeah, I mean it's a graphic novel, so it's like it reads, you know, like a comic book, whatever. And I haven't read it either. I actually hauled it recently because it was one that I stole when I was going through all my husband's stuff. So it'll be good to actually.
I'm really excited to read it. I feel like I'm gonna really like the characters.
But yeah. So yeah. Looks like Watchmen's our next book. Dates to be determined.
Me and Sam will try to be more organized next time.
Try to get our shit like slightly together. Maybe.
I watched Watchmen.
Yeah, I feel like this is a movie that you shouldn't watch drunk. I feel like it's a little all over the place.
I kind of want to now that you've said that.
Like, maybe not if you want to understand it. If you want to have a good time, yeah, I would say that would probably be.
People that there is probably a Watchmen movie drinking game. There's drinking games for most movies, so basically, it's like you drink every time something happens in the movie. I did that with The Room, which is 100% the worst movie ever made. And the rules for that drinking game are basically just like drink the whole time.
Well,
which makes the movie even funnier. But no, I don't encourage being an irresponsible drunk. I was at home and with friends. Nobody drove anywhere.
Good.
Also, if you're not of a legal drinking age, don't watch anything drunk. Thanks.
Yeah, that's
my public service announcement.
Okay, well, I think that is it. Unless there's anything else, but I have to get it going.
All right. Well, thanks for coming, everybody.
Yeah, I've had a great time.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah.
So excited. We'll definitely be doing this at some point at the end of April.
And maybe we'll be slightly more organized. We'll see.
Hopefully.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.